Hello and welcome to the webinar. Here we are doing, I'm just a few minutes behind schedule. We are going to go ahead and get this thing started in a moment though. We'll just take care of some administrative business here of what we're doing. If you are in a tool, we're obviously using Google Hangouts, and you are in a tool that allows you to log in and see from Google Hangouts. Over there to your right-hand side, you should notice a chat window and be able to ask questions. And you can contact us. We'll have some contact information at the very end to ask questions also. So before we get started really well, I want to know many people do. And by the way, if you just want to say hello in the chat window, some of you are saying, Matt, you're saying, or somebody is saying they have no sound. You should have a sound now. If you guys can hear me, somebody will just ping me and let me know that, hey, I am not talking to the wall. Let's see. Okay. There's another thing that we do have, since we are using Google Hangouts. It looks like we do have audio. Since we are using Google Hangouts, there's a little bit of delay. That's a Google Hangout or YouTube or Google method for keeping things straight. So hopefully that won't be a problem. Awesome. Many of you are telling me you can hear me now. That is awesome. Okay. That's that delay I was talking about. So just for you to know, this is a live webinar. We always have to prove it to you, right? So I'm going to, there I am in my office, and we're going to be in a live webinar mode. And let me go back to the screen because that's what we want to focus on here. You should see a screen in front of you. Networking for Introverts, brought to you by University of Alabama at Birmingham, Masters of Engineering Management. In particular, we are coming from the Information Engineering and Management program. A track of this is a graduate degree focusing on engineering management. And it is online, and this is who's bringing this to you. I actually work with this program. So we're going to be doing these webinars once a month. We would love your feedback. We have email addresses that will be at the end. We would love to get some feedback from you about what you would like to hear, what you would like to see. We will probably be using GoToWebinar or GoToMeeting type stuff in the future. But we have various people coming in that have volunteered to do some really interesting webinars. And but hey, we're doing these for you guys. So please shout out to us and say, hey, how you found out about us, whether you came through a Facebook or just came, some of you I know are alumni. But what it is you might want to see done in some of these webinars, what topics you might want to hit. Basically, we'll pull from people from industry. We'll grab anybody we need, no matter what topic you want to talk about. So we can queue them up. We expect to do these monthly and about this time. So if this is a terrible time, let us know that too. Obviously, these will be in replay mode. We will have them on our website. You will also probably get an email after this giving you the replay link. So let me go ahead and just jump right in. I am Dale Callahan. And so let me just see if we got my screen working here. And this is how I feel. I'm sorry, well, my screen, this doesn't look near as pretty as it probably does to you, but when I go to networking, when you go to networking events, you put on the little name tag about who you are, and this is generally the name tag I want to use. So hopefully some of you can relate to this. Probably not all of you. Obviously, this title is Networking for Introverts, but I might even call this more strategic networking. How do you and I network in a way that makes sense to us? How do we connect with the right number of people in the right way? So you may hate networking and you may love networking, but it's really not a matter of hate or love. It's a matter of, how do I make it work for me? How can I find out who is the people I need to be talking to? How can I find out how to connect with them? How can I find out what they want to talk about? I was having lunch with a CIO of a company the other day, and typically when you're talking to somebody, you think they want to talk about their technology in their company. He didn't. That was, he's a great officer of his CIO's type stuff, I'm sure, but what lights up his heart is something totally different. There was a sport that he was very actively involved in, and there was a ministry type opportunity, a nonprofit type thing he was very actively involved in. That's what he wanted to talk about. And that's one of the things we'll talk about. How do you connect with people and find out their issues? So this is my name tag. I do hate networking. I still hate networking events. I don't hate people. So if you see me somewhere, you don't have to worry about that part. I like talking to people, I like helping people, but the networking thing is just insane to me, because this is what it looks like. You walk into a room, you get your nice little name tag. The name tags these guys are wearing a little nicer than the one I just showed you. But you get your little name tag, you sign in, and you're either walking into a group of people where a set number of people, or where no one. And when I was first graduating Auburn University with a degree in electrical engineering, they told us networking was the key, to forget the resume, forget all the normal job stuff, but go connect and network. When I heard those words as an introvert, when I heard those words, I remember we sat in a very big auditorium. There was probably 200 electrical engineering students in there, because Auburn's a big electrical engineering school. And when I sat in there, it was a little bit insane, because I'm sitting in there in this crowd, and I just literally broke out in a sweat. The thought of networking, because here's what I was thinking. I was thinking, I'm spending all this time, energy, money on getting a degree in electrical engineering, and I'm suffering through it. I'm about done. And now you're telling me that I need to become an extrovert to make this work. Now you're telling me that without learning how to network, I'm going to have an average career. And that's what the speaker was saying. You just cannot grow without a network. I don't care how good you are technically or anything else. He said it was about your network. And he made a statement like this. I don't know if it was this exact words, but it was that every single opportunity you will have in life comes through your network. The more powerful your network, the better your opportunities. The smaller your network, you're average. And coming out of an engineering school, especially one as big and dominant as that, the thought of just, hey, I want to be average, didn't sound very exciting to me. So I literally went over to a meeting that was going on that next day or that night, I think, at Auburn, a jobs fair. And it was a room kind of like this. There weren't quite as many suits, maybe, because there was a lot of students, but it was a room like this. It was a bigger room. I walked into that room. I remember driving there, by the way, thinking, and I passed an oral surgeon's office, looked over there and thought it would be easier, less painful to drive in there and get a root canal than to go to this. I mean, I was probably hyperventilating, because this is not something I enjoy doing. I walked into the room. There was hundreds of people there. I didn't know anybody. And I pretty much stayed next to the food table, and long enough to say that I was there and I did it and I accomplished it. But in the reality, I didn't meet but one guy. That guy was looking for a job. So I did myself zero good by going here. And even though I sweated and almost had a heart attack in the process, I didn't help myself. So it was not a good thing for me to do. So one of the things I realized then is I'm an engineer. I am an engineer, dadgummit. I know about building processes and building things. And so what I needed was some kind of methodology that would work for me because I knew I was not naturally skilled as a networker. Now, that didn't occur to me on that day. This occurred to me over a period of time after that day, but part of it is taking a job I hated that helped in that too. But I was not naturally skilled as a networker. It was not something that just came to me. And I think about it going into a kitchen. If you're not a naturally skilled chef, when you go into the kitchen, what do you need? You need a recipe. With a recipe, with a process, we can do pretty much anything we need to do without a natural skill and without, being an extrovert in this case. But again, I've learned this isn't about extroverts and introverts. This is about something much bigger. This is about strategic networking. But for those introverts of you, I will say, here's one of the things to think about. How do you network without Prozac? Maybe Xanax is the drug of choice these days. Not sure. But how can you network without losing your blooming mind, which is where I was. And that's where many networking opportunities I did before was losing my mind. So I'm going to give you a simple recipe and then give you some examples. And so we're going to get really straight down to the stuff. So here's the simpleness. We call this networking 101, a direct method of networking. 3 simple steps. Decide what you want. Find out who's doing it now. Contact and then ask for advice. You will notice I have excellent punctuation here because I am an engineer, and I'm not even sure the question mark belongs on the other one, on the second sentence, but okay, that's just details. Let's just state I'm an engineer and you can overlook all this. These 3 points, and let me say this, these 3 points are exactly how we do 3 things. Well, number 1, this is exactly how we help people find jobs. This is exactly how we help people find jobs. This simple process. Okay. So if you're unemployed or looking for new employment, this is an awesome methodology. This is exactly how we start companies. If you have an entrepreneur heart and you're looking at something and maybe you even have some ideas, this is the exact same methodology. And if you know much about me, you'll know the difference between a job and an entrepreneur is very subtle at best. But the third thing that we do in this is we help people figure out what the heck do they want to do when they grow up. So we help everybody from high school students to people who are retired and looking for what to do next, and anybody in between, because quite frankly, most of us don't know. So since I can't get you to show, when I'm talking about this in front of an audience, I ask for a show of hands. Which one of these do you think are the hardest to do? Hey, I can do that. You guys can comment, just 1, 2, or 3. Which one do you think is the most challenging as we talk to people, as we coach people? Which one of these is the most challenging thing to do? And since we have a little bit of delay, I'll be able to see your answers in just a second. But which one of these is the most challenging thing to do? To either decide what you want, number 2, or find out who's doing that now, or number 3, contact them, reach out to them, phone call, email, whatever, and ask for advice. I will throw in there Facebook and Twitter and anything else, but primarily email, phone call, maybe LinkedIn. So yeah, tell me which one you think is the most challenging, and I'll come back to that in just a second once we get some feedback from you guys. So once we do those 3, we're going to go do those 3 things. I'm going to decide what I want. I'm going to find out who's doing it now. I'm going to contact them and get a meeting, get a phone call, get a coffee. And so when I get in front of them, step 4, this is kind of a part of step 3 actually, but we'll make it a step 4. Ask 3 questions. Here are the 3 questions. How did you get to where you are? So how did you get to where you are? What do you love and hate about your work? And this last question, what keeps you awake at night, or a variation of that? And I'll talk about the variation in just a minute. Some of you are sending me what you think is the hardest. It's kind of awesome here. Let's see, Paul, Maria, Renard, James, Michael, what? No, James. A couple of you are saying ones. A couple of you are saying there's a minimal of you. Michael, you may be the only one right now that says number 2. And let me go back to that slide just so we know what I'm talking about. The right direction. So most of you are saying number 1's the most challenging. Some of you are saying number 2, and there's a couple of you that are saying number 3. And by the way, there is no wrong or right answer here. Well, there's no wrong answer here. This was a personal question. Which one do you think is the most challenging? Overall, globally, as we talk to people in groups and coach people, number 1 is the hardest. That may not be you. You may find different things harder. But number 1 is usually the hardest because most of us don't know what the heck we want to do. Most of us have a job. We're fairly well employed. We're doing well at work. Some of you maybe be out of work and you're like, I had a guy, I talked to a guy the other day, and he says, I have a great, awesome job in the sense that it pays me well. It takes care of my family, but I can do this with both hands tied behind my back. And the thought of leaving here and going out and doing something else means I end up in another company just like where I am now with all the morale issues, and my brain is numb to it. What's the point of leaving? And it wasn't that he hated his company or anything. It's just he felt like he needed a new opportunity. But if he was going to go jump into a new opportunity doing what he was doing now, what's the point? So most of us have grown up in a society where we're not really asked what we want to do, or we put limitations on what we want to do. I work with a group of people every week who are in a mastermind group who are doing bizarre things, who are doing things I can't explain to you in short things, not because it's secret, but because I don't know how to really explain to you what is going on. Because some of them are professional bloggers, podcasters, and this is how they make their full-time living, and they're making more than probably anybody on this call. And they're working out of their house. They're in their own time. They may be working out of the Cayman Islands next month. They don't really care. But I can't explain to you what they're doing because what they're doing doesn't fit in a job description that most of us are used to or have seen before. So when we decide what we want, a lot of times the challenge is we're thinking, I'm a project manager, so I think I want to be a project manager leader, or I'm a project, I'm a software developer, so I want to be team lead, or whatever the titles are. And by the way, titles are totally irrelevant in companies. They're made up for lawyers and not for you. Well, they're made up to make you feel good a little bit, but they're primarily for the attorneys. We don't have time to go into why that is, but let me just jump in. So here's the formula. You do these 3 things, ask 3 questions, and here's the questions. And let me just now jump in and give you some examples. This is Brian Rabin. He is a graduate of our program, and then he was faculty of our program, and then he's not an active faculty, but he's still on faculty for the Information Engineering Management program, and he's a good friend of mine. And you can look at the link here. You don't have time to do this now, but you want to dalecallahan.com/18. There's a blog post /podcast where I interviewed Brian. So why is this relevant? Because Brian came to me one day and said, Dale, I hate where I am. He's a software guy that found himself in a leadership position, and he thought that was the right path, by the way. He thought that going from software to software team lead up to project management team lead, which he was, he thought the further he went in his career, the happier he would be because he was supposed to do that. And I remember the first time he told me this is what he wanted, and we helped him get where he was. Several people, including me, told Brian, that's not what you want. We knew him well enough to know that wasn't what turned him on. That wasn't his drive. That wasn't it for him. But he was going to go back into another corporate gig, and he did. And he came to me months later, and we had lunch, and he hated it. So we did this process. We went right down the line, and there's if you go to the website dalecallahan.com, this is, I mean, that's my personal website, but it's a lot of the stuff we do in the graduate program. But if you go to that website, there's a thing on the very far side that talks about how to find your calling, and there's a download. It's free. And we took Brian through that, where he looked at what does he want to do, and it helped him get some ideas about what he wanted to do. It was that number one question: what do you want? Brian decided he wanted to travel around and be a project management trainer. So what do you want? Number two, as we sat there and explored that over lunch and over probably some emails, I asked Brian, who is doing it now? Who is king of the world in this area now? And he said, well, there's this guy, and I forget the guy's name, but he goes around the country. He's written books on project management. He goes around the world speaking, training on project management. He's kind of the king right now. And so I asked Brian, number one, what do you want? Step number two, who's doing it? He just figured this out. Step number three was contact him. So I said, Brian, have you talked to the guy? No. He said, I can't. He's kind of like Oprah. He's unreachable. And we, obviously the guy's not Oprah, but he felt like he was this unreachable. Now, which is not true, because Oprah is reachable, but you get this sense sometimes that these people who look like they're unreachable are unreachable, but they're not. I mean, heck, we got Twitter and Facebook and social media and email and phone calls. We got lots of ways to reach people. They may not talk to you. They may talk to you. More than likely, they're going to talk to you at some level. Brian found the guy's phone number or email address, and he called him. And he asked the guy, what is it that you, how did you get started? Those questions. How did you get to where you are? So I'm just really walking straight down this question. How did you get to where you are? And the guy told him, he said, here's what I did to get, when I first got started, I was working for a corporate gig, just like you, Brian. Here's what I did. Step one. And it was not a complicated thing, by the way. And I won't get into what it was, but it was, basically go do training for other companies. I won't get into the details, but people are already doing it. Go contact them. See if you can do it for them. They'll pay you a little bit of cash. So Brian did that. And then the second thing, what do you love and hate? Those two, by the way, those first two questions, what do you love about what you do, and what do you, how did you get to where you are, and what do you love and what do you hate about what you do, are critical questions, because you're not asking about the corporation, you're asking about the person. And one of the key things in networking, okay, if you don't know this already, write this down. Dale Carnegie said it first a long time ago in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. But here's the key. If you want people to like you, get them to talk about their favorite subject. If you want people to like you, get them to talk about their favorite subject. Now, let me give you a hint. What is their favorite subject? What is your favorite subject to talk about? When you look in the mirror, you see that favorite subject. People like to talk about themselves, their lives, their careers, what they've done, whatever. It's about themselves. Those first two questions are trying to get the person you've contacted to not talk about you and what you want, because they don't give a rip what you want. They want to talk about them. But that's very great, because what do you want? You don't really want to talk about what you want either. You want to learn from them. If they're doing something you would love to be doing, how did you get there? That's critical. You want people to talk about themselves. But this is even true if I see another company that's doing a process that I want to be doing and I want to bring to our company. I would use this same exact process. I'm not looking for a job. I'm looking to how do I learn what company X is doing so I can bring it into company Y, my company. I would go out there and talk to them and do the same thing. I want to find the people doing it. I want to contact them and I want to go say, hey, when you started this brilliant method or this brilliant system you're doing, whatever it is, how did you guys get started doing this? Again, if you're talking to the person in charge, they're talking about themselves, their battles, their wins, their successes. We love to talk about that stuff. So those two questions are not asking at the corporate line. They're asking the people to talk about themselves. Okay. So that's the first, that was the question. That was step 4. Who is it? What do I want to do? Step 1. Who's doing it now? Step 2. Contact them and ask them for advice. Maybe you better underline that word advice if you got it written down too. Not for a job. Advice. I'm willing to give you advice. If you call me and ask me for a job, I'm going to hang up on you. If you send me an email with your resume, I'm going to delete it. If you send me an email asking for advice, we can have a conversation. You're no different than I am. I know it. So if I send somebody to you for advice, you'll talk to them. If I send somebody to you asking for money, you'll be mad at me, right? That's just human nature. Step 4, or part of step 3, was ask the 3 questions. The 3 questions are, how did you get here? What do you love and hate about what you do? The last question is, what keeps you awake at night? Okay, that's a key question. We'll talk about that. Brian actually probably didn't use that one. But here's an example of using this methodology for a startup. By the way, Brian could have actually used this methodology to go to work for the guy he called, because the guy probably would have hired Brian right then. Brian didn't tell me whether he offered him a job or not, but he could have, looked for, hey, I'm looking for trainers to grow my business. Let's have a chat. But this is a startup. I've seen other friends of mine do startups in the same methodology. Brian's company is doing very, very well, by the way. Let me give you an example from a job position. Some of you may be familiar with this book, What Color is Your Parachute? It has been published every year since the dinosaurs roamed the earth, I guess. I don't know. Richard Bowles wrote this book and updates it every year. And in it, what we're looking at here is, how do you connect and how do you make how do you get a job? So it's similar things. When I read this book, I was working for a company which I hated my job. And when I read this and looked for the company where I was looked for a way out, he talked about making connections with people, very much like what I'm talking about. How do you connect with the right people? So what I did is I picked up the phone. I found a phone book. Y'all remember what those things are? You found a phone book, and because I was miserable. Let me just state that again. I was having a Prozac moment every single day. So I was thinking, what do I want to do? I got to get out of this, even if it costs me all the money, even if I just have to quit. So I picked up the phone book and thought, okay, what I really like is I really like personal finance stuff. I don't know how to do it for you, but I know how to do it for me. So maybe I could get a job doing this. So I found a local company that was a personal finance company, the biggest one I could find. I didn't want the Fidelities and the big national chains because I wanted to be able to get to somebody pretty quickly. And I was kind of testing this guy's book. But I'm an introvert. This is nerve-wracking. So I pick up the phone, though, and I find this company, and I called up. And you ever done something and you think you have lots of doubts that will work? Oh, I had all kinds of doubts. As a matter of fact, I fully knew what was going to happen here. And tell me if you think, what do you think is going to happen? I pick up the phone. I called the company. Can I speak to the owner? Now, probably what you expect was going to happen is you get the runaround, the hang up on, or anything that happens. And that's what I expected. But the lady who answered the phone said, yes, his name is Tom. I forget what his last name is. His name is Tom something, and he'll be right with you. And I remember there was that silence there for a minute while I'm on hold. And I was thinking, what just happened? How did that happen? And I was also a little terrified because now Tom was going to pick up the phone and I wasn't really sure what was going to happen or what I was going to say because I didn't expect it to go this far. I was just testing the method in the book, thinking the author was kind of crazy. Tom picks up the phone and says, Dale, he says, this is Tom. Can I help you? And I said, hey, and I was scared. I was terrified. I was literally terrified because I was now calling a guy who is the owner of the company, had lots of employees. I didn't know what I was doing. And I said, look, you don't know me. I'm Dale Callahan. I'm a local telecommunications engineer. I'm interested in the world of personal finance, but I'm really looking for some advice and some counsel. Can I come talk to you? Now, I was nervous, and so I probably rattled it off much faster than I just said it to you. And there was this little silence at the end, and he says, well, sure, why don't you come by Tuesday at 9 o'clock? And do you know where my office is? And I'm like, sure. And I remember hanging up the phone thinking, wow, that was weird. I just pierced the corporate veil. I'm not going through HR. I'm doing this. I thought this was kind of cool. So I go over there and I talk to him. I ask him for 20 minutes of his time. I don't know when I rattled that off, but and I'm watching my watch and I do exactly these questions. Tom, hey, here's where I am. I'm a telecommunications guy. I'm interested in this. I'm just kind of curious. I'm looking, you have a successful business. What got you started? Tom told me. Tom carried on and told me, what do you love and you hate about this? Now, Tom's asking me some questions too, to be fair, but I'm focusing on him. What is it that he learned? And at the end of 20 minutes, I said, thank you so much for your time. And he was like, no, let me show you around. Let me introduce you to my team. And I was like, no. He was willing to spend a lot more time with me. Now, I'll tell you why in a minute, but at the end of it, he gives me his card. He says, please contact me anytime if you have any more questions, any kind of questions, contact me. He gave me his home number, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to the door, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, Dale, he says, we're not looking to hire anybody here or anything, but, I kind of like you. Would you be interested in coming to work for us? And I literally stumbled then because I was thinking the guy in the book, What Color is Your Parachute, that you see in front of you, talks about what to happen if you get a job offer. I didn't read it because I thought that'll never happen. You don't get a job offer by just going and talking to somebody. Well, I stumbled around it and I managed to tell him, well, I'm exploring. I'll get back to you, which, by the way, is the right answer, So I got in my car, and I remember so vividly that day because I got in my car thinking, well, I just got a job offer. And I crank up my car and I look over the hood of my car because I can remember this cold February morning. And I realized, no, I just created a job out of thin air. Out of thin air, I got a job and I got the offer. So here I was, had networked in this is, I'm much more extroverted now than I was then. But as an introvert, I pierced the corporate veil. I went straight to the head of the company. I got him to like me. By the way, that's why he was interested in me. He saw in me a passion for what even though I'm ignorant about what he was an expert on, I was passionate about it. That's why that first question is so critical. You got to know what the heck you want. If I was going in here talking about this guy and I could have cared less about personal finance, he would have seen through me in about 5 seconds. You can't fake it. You can't fake passion. Well, you can fake it a little bit, but it's not going to work. You got to love what you're after. And when you do, you'll get people to talk to you and they're going to share with you and they're going to help you. Now, I could give you examples of these kind of things. By the way, during our information engineering management program, one of the things we can do is we get people to do this. And over, the people that go out and really do it, they get job offers. And some of them take them. I get the phone calls all the time. Hey, I'm moving here. I'm doing this. And why? Because that stupid interview you sent me on with this process is sometimes called a reverse interview. But it's a powerful way to network. By the way, I did not walk into a room with 100 people I did not know. This was actually a fairly comfortable process once I got there. It was a very simple, comfortable process. So There's the formula. Decide what you want. Who is doing it now? Contacting, ask them for advice. Let me just jump in now and give you. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them in the chat box. Obviously, I'm gonna give you email and everything at the end. Even if you want to get on the phone and talk about how to do this kind of stuff. If you want to, we can do that. We'll give you contact information on do some of that. But this is basically the process. Now, by the way, I have not covered examples. I do have examples for that last question. What keeps you awake at night? That is where we have started multiple companies. That is where you can really pierce and understand the value. So let me just tell you just about that one really quick. If you get in front of the right person and you ask that question, what keeps you awake at night? Or maybe the question is, let me give you a quick example. I'm at a luncheon. I'm sitting next to a guy I don't know. This awkward, stupid lunches when you got 14 forks and you're not really sure what to do with any of them, and you're just waiting for the speaker to come up and you don't know anybody. And you're just awkward because I can sit here and eat my salad and stuff my face and look like a total jerk, or I can try to talk to the guy next to me who clearly doesn't want to talk to me either. But this time I did, and I look over and, hey, we're talking, what do you do? And he's the owner of a healthcare services company. And so, which was kind of weird because he was pretty introverted. I was the extrovert in this conversation. And I said, well, okay, what holds your business back? What's your big challenge? So it's that same question. What's your big challenge? And he said, we're trying to, he said, I got tons of salespeople and everything. He says, we can't get to the docks. If we can get to the docks, we can sell our products and services. If I can't get past the gatekeepers. Now, I don't know about you, but he told me exactly what he would hire me to do. He told me exactly what he would contract with me as a company to do. I knew his pain. That's what we're getting at, is what's the pain. I just challenge you, as you run into people, as you're talking to people and you say, hey, what do you do? As you learn what they do, start learning to ask that question. Hey, in your job, what's the biggest challenge? What is it that keeps you awake at night? What's holding you back? What's holding your department back? However you ask it, they're all versions of the same thing. What are you looking for is pain. And where there's pain, there's opportunity. And I can find you 100 opportunities this afternoon, or just by listening to people. Not that you would be interested in very many of them, but some opportunities. And that's the key, is just open the door for opportunities. So let me give you one other quick thing. That's the big formula that we find so powerful. Let me just throw another little thing about networking here. Is organizations, Chamber of Commerce Association, causes and events. And I just ask you guys, and I'm seeing some of you that are saying you're late. Has the webinar started? I sure hope that you know the answer to that now. If not, we got some other technical difficulties. But just ask you this question. Just throw it in chats, in the chat section there. What kind of organizations do you show up to, or you members of, and you never show up? I mean, just are they? You throw a name. I mean, I get real involved with the PMI groups, the project management institutes. I know that's all I know about them is how to spell them, but I speak at a lot of them. So I know they're very active. IEEE, I'm also involved in. So if you just share with each other kind of what you are involved in terms of organization. But let's just talk very quickly. How do you use these organizations to grow your network? The key on all these organizations is they are volunteer. And as a volunteer organization, getting anyone to actually do the volunteer is the challenge. So you just step up and volunteer and be willing to do something, pretty much anything, and you become a hero. Now, you actually got to deliver, or you become a jerk. But let's step up to places you can do this, you can volunteer, you become a hero. Now, when you do that, you get noticed. So it's really just as simple as that. Let me give you the hint of one of the hardest jobs in most associations, and especially if you're a technical person, you're part of a technical association, any kind of technical stuff. And I would throw accounting and finance and type stuff in there when I'm talking technical. I don't just mean engineering type stuff. The hardest thing is most of these have a speaker once a month at their dinner meetings, and they have speakers at conferences. And when you're sitting around the room where those kind of organizations where everybody's a bunch of introverts, what you end up with is the same speakers over and over and over and over from same months. And so probably some of you are part of these organizations, and you sit through, here's another speaker from company XYZ talking about the same stupid stuff. You're just bored to tears. And sometimes it's the same guy or gal, and they may be awesome, but you've heard it. They don't have anything different to say. They're telling the same story. So one of the keys is sometimes they call this the programs, the head of programs, the chair of the programs committee, whatever you want to call it. If you can be the person to find the speakers, you're a hero. And I've been members of a couple of these organizations, and they say, Dale, the hardest job here, everything runs pretty smoothly. We know what to do. We know how to get the pizza. We know how to get the food. We know how to get the dinner. We know how to get out. We know how to do the check-in at the tables, all this kind of junk. What we can't ever do, the hard part is finding speakers, and we just kill ourselves doing that. And I remember when I took over from some organization as the head of programs, I said, I'll do that, because to me that seemed like the easiest thing. Because here's a trick I've understood. Everyone loves to speak if you hit the right level. And by the way, you can go higher. By the way, you can start at the top. If I call the CEO of your corporation and say, hey, we have this great opportunity, and we're looking for you guys to come speak on some of the new things that you guys are doing, I'd like you as Mr. or Mrs. CEO to come talk. Wide open. That, as an officer of a company, that is part of their responsibility. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to come. They might hand it off to somebody else as a administrator, as a vice president or something. But it's so much better than starting at the bottom of the food chain where a whole bunch of people don't like to talk and going up. And by the way, when you get a higher level person coming, you really look like a hero. And the day I got that job, I just literally sent emails and got on the phone calls and filled up the calendar for the whole year. And it wasn't minutes, because, we had to get schedules and all done. But it was pretty quick. It wasn't really that hard to do. And it wasn't because I'm super smart or anything. It was just because I know this. Call any company you want to have speak, and they'll come speak, and you can become a hero. So here's some things to think about there. Now, one of the things I don't, in these organizations and everything, they're not always worth your time. I totally get that. And they're not going to be always big giant hits. But as you go into these things and kind of go into this volunteer attitude and everything, you'll get some great ideas. By the way, I'm not really seeing anybody, and I don't know if you've got, I'm not really seeing a whole bunch of people post what kind of organizations they're part of. I would really like to see, so hopefully some of you are what I'm seeing right now. None of you are part of organizations. That says something about your network. Let me give you one other hint for going into organizations blind. Don't ever go in blind. I never have to be nerve-wracked again about going into a room where I don't know people. If I'm going into a meeting where it's a big meeting and it's a new group, I don't know, it's in a new city, I don't know, then what I do is get on there and send the president of the organization an email that says something along the lines of, hey, really love to get involved with your organization or find out what it's about. I'd like to come to the meeting. I really don't know anybody. So what do I need to know? Or who's going to be there? Or do I need to do anything special to register? And I make a connection with the leader. And usually we get a little bit of email back and forth. So when I get in there, the first thing I do is I make a beeline to find that person. And by the way, everybody knows the leader. It's not like I'm saying, hey, is Sam here? No. When you talk, I was speaking at a group the other day, and I went in there and I said, where's George? He was the guy in charge. And so everybody knew where George was. I go find George, and this happens every time. What does the leader do? They immediately start introducing you to the other leaders. So you can bypass all the fluff because there's the other people hanging around the food table and all. They don't know anybody. They're easy to talk to. That's great. But my job is not to know everybody. My job is to know the right people. So that's how I pierce it and get in there and know the right people. And it's not near as nerve-wracking as it is doing something else. Matt, so far you're the only guy doing anything. It looks like you're involved in Toastmasters, church groups, veteran groups. So Toastmasters, by the way, I used to be a member of that. They kicked me out. They didn't kick me out, but it's a great group to learn how to speak and kind of break your nerve for those of you that are doing that. So here's one other thing. This is kind of what we call 103, and we're going to end it at this. But you want to keep your connections open. The very first thing, if you're not on LinkedIn, by the way, you should be on LinkedIn. The very first thing I'm going to do at the end of meeting you is go LinkedIn with you, follow up with you, find some ways to get you to add value to you in the future. I mean, I try to. I'm not perfect at it, but if I spoke, I was meeting with a guy in Dallas probably a month ago. And so I've emailed him and said, hey, I was thinking about what you said. Here's something you might want to look at. Just what you're doing is just kind of like having a communications channel, and you're keeping it open. Obviously, asking them to speak is an awesome way to do that. Asking them to lunch is awesome way to do that, because this is what typically you do. Probably most of you. How many of you go to work? I'd love to know. Who do you go to lunch with? You can post that in the chat session. Your typical everyday at lunch. Are you lunching with coworkers? Are you lunching alone? And are you lunching in the corporate lunch place? Because this is what most people do, is they lunch with coworkers. Nothing wrong with that. But what happens is it usually becomes a morale downturn, sometimes, not always, but instead, could you use that time to connect to people? Could you just go to lunch with some different people and just listen and learn? Do basically the questions I'm talking about here. All right. That is where we are for this. This is a couple of quick things in networking. We spend a great amount of time on networking in the information engineering and management program. Here is a link to it. Maria Whitmire is basically knows. I told somebody the other day, if you want to know how we actually work or anything, you got to ask Maria the details. But here is the phone number that reaches us, Maria and I. And the email that kind of gets to us is iem@uab.edu. You can reach me at my email address down there if you have any questions about this. And obviously, by the way, y'all are telling me you go to lunch with coworkers. So if you have any questions about what we are going to be doing here, go ahead and throw them in there because we have a little bit of a delay. So go ahead and throw them in the chat. You can also email us directly a question. If you want to email me directly a question, we probably will get it in a reasonable time to deal with it, which is just to dcallahan@uab.edu. I am monitoring my email, and we're monitoring the chat here. So if you have questions, go ahead and ask them. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our program just in the time while I'm waiting to see if anybody has any questions. So I'm killing dead air, if you will. Obviously, it's a good thing I never was in radio. Our program, we recruit for the fall. So we'll be recruiting for fall of 2015. Actually, it's summer 2015 is really technically what we're doing. That's actually the calendar of what we're doing. And in the fall, we will be bringing in a group of people. Now, here's the way our program works. We're masters of engineering management. We are online. You can either be in Birmingham with us or not. You can come and go as you choose. We have class versus online, and they're all blended, and they're all the same thing. So some people that work out of town come and join us just on Saturdays, just on Fridays. And the way we operate is we shoot for the ultimate of flexibility. Everything is online, and we are trying to operate that on a Friday and a Saturday once a month. And I say trying because it doesn't always perfectly come out to be once a month, but that's what we shoot for. So all day Friday, all day Saturday is the content. It is live streamed, and obviously it is pre-recorded. So that's how we do it. Everybody that's our faculty members, they're all real world people. They're all, they're not academics. They're teaching real world stuff. And our giant focus is on you. We look at people as clients, not students, because we're serving you. You're basically, we're like hiring a consulting company for the business of you. But our big focus overall is how do we figure out where you want to go, how to help you get there, and how to network with the right people. And we do that in context of some courses that teach that and some courses that teach the big picture. Obviously, one of the big things is IT, but I wouldn't say we're necessarily pro IT or heavy duty IT, I should say. We do have a little bit of an IT focus, mostly because it's such a core element of corporate America. So some of you are asking, Michael, you're asking, can we provide a LinkedIn profile? Absolutely. There's probably not a pretty way to do this. Well, absolutely, there is a pretty way to do it. Let me jump out of this and do something stupid, which is do something live. Let me get out of this screen here. And my LinkedIn profile, you can just find me under the name Dale Callahan, but just to show you what that looks like, just so you know that you've found the right crazy people. And let's see, and it's just searching under, it's probably, I think the LinkedIn direct link is linkedin.com/n/Dale Callahan. And here, let me do this a different way. And you can go to my webpage, and there's also a LinkedIn connection there. Yes, it's LinkedIn/n/Dale Callahan, and there I am. So that is the way to get to me. Yes, thank you, William. Awesome. That would have been so much faster. Obviously, knowing how to use a tool is critical. Will there be a replay of this webinar? Sound issues? Yes, I'm sorry about that. Tyler's asking. Yes, we will have a replay. As a matter of fact, you should get an email shortly after this with a replay. It will be on Google YouTube's. Also, we will have it on our site, which is the site that you saw there. And our program goes by IEM, Information Engineering and Management. But we're a Master's of Engineering Management, so don't get confused. But it will be embedded. I don't know where we're going to do it because I'm not allowed to mess with the site because I usually mess things up. But it will be on this site. There'll probably be something over here on the right-hand side that tells you how to get to the webinar. We're going to do this every month. I don't know. Maria probably knows who is the plan, or maybe we don't have it nailed down who's planned next week, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be somebody from the U.S. Air Force's Wargaming Institute, which is pretty interesting stuff. So he's looking at how do you use wargaming. And I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth. How do you use wargaming and the principles used by the military and wargaming in the corporate gigs? And some pretty, I mean, for no other reason, it's just cool stuff. All right. We are almost on the hour, and that's where we want to be, is done within 1 hour. So let me, I'm going to just put this back up as our contact. Oops. Put this back up as our contact information. Whoops, would help if I got you on the right page. There we go. We will leave that up there for you a few minutes, but Maria is telling me in a message, by the way, yes, our next webinar is not totally lined up. But I will say this, we're asking corporate people and people that are friends of ours at various things that if they will do one, and the answer is yeah, they would love doing them. Matter of fact, we think we have Brian Rabin, probably the guy I just talked about. He will be doing one. We don't know when. And Maria is telling me on our website, check the events page for the webinars. So probably not long after this goes live, I mean, after we're done here, we will have that up there. But that's about it for today. I'm going to hang around here, and if anybody wants to throw questions in the question box, we will answer them at least for the next few minutes, and then we will bail out of here. So thank you guys so much for coming and joining with us. And if we can help, here's how to contact us.